Hi, this is Lucille Kring, and welcome to KRINGS Corner. Again, I have two of my favorite people in the entire world as my guests this week. They are Ron Winship and Larry Gilbert, and they are Cutting Edge, a talk show. They are the most fun people around. They're very intelligent, they're very articulate, they know the issues, and they're real politicos, so it's a good fit for us. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here again.
Thanks for inviting us back.
Always our pleasure being here.
Good. And what have you been doing? You've got this wonderful talk show, Cutting Edge talk show.
Right.
It's internet. What have you been doing?
Well, we've been trying something new lately. Actually, the last show we did, the typical interview show we do try to find newsmakers that are really worth going after, and then we try to really put their feet to the fire. We did that with Chris Simcox and the Minutemen the last time, and that was back in June. But you know, something came along, and we just decided, let's try something different. So we've never done any editorial. And so we decided, well, Larry and I maybe should try a little editorial. So we've done 2 shows now regarding editorial issues. When the last one we just did was on news anchors. So,
no kidding.
Yeah, so it's an hour show. It's a big project, obviously, and so it's a lot to cover, and we couldn't cover it in an hour. We'd have to take, 7 or 8 days to do that. But thanks for asking, and I hope people will pull up our website. It's Cutting Edge, all one word, and then a center hyphen and atalkshow.com.
Okay.
And we appreciate it so much. Thanks a lot for asking.
You're welcome. Well, that sounds great. So no guests, just do the editorials.
We're in front of the camera this time instead of behind the camera.
Ooh, exciting. Wow.
Had to get a haircut for the show.
I see it worked. It was good enough you kept it
Every
for
6
this
months
show.
I go.
Hey, that's terrific. The last time you were on, it was a few months ago, and we talked about the Supreme Court, and Justice Sandra Day O'Connor just resigned.
Right.
And in the meantime, Chief Justice Rehnquist passed away, so we have a new Chief Justice, and now the President has nominated Harriet Miers to fill the position of Justice O'Connor. What do you think? There's so much controversy about this poor woman who's never done anything wrong, but people don't like her.
Well, they call this a tempest in a teapot. There's 2 ways to look at it. The first way is it's a rabbit. In other words, he's just sending out a thought balloon to the Democrats and saying, here, go after this person. She's homosexual. Hey, she's not necessarily exactly what you want.
I didn't know she was.
Well, that's what they say. That's the rumor.
See, just because you're not married in your 60s, they think the worst.
Well, there's issues. Those are issues. That was for issues for what is it? Andrew Jackson too. Anyway, bottom line is
You had to ask.
The president loves this lady, and this lady worked for him for a long time, and she's undoubtedly a very fine conservative lady. But there's something that's either not being said about this that will eventually come out, or else she's a rabbit, and he's just shoving her out there to get him off track, and then the next person will come along, and it'll be a great, Chief Justice. But she fits some of the demographics. She's a lady. And even though she's not a minority, well, maybe she is a minority. We don't know that yet.
Well, women are minorities.
Yeah.
As a blanket.
Exactly.
So
but
we're profiling for the replacement, right?
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, she's a nice lady, undoubtedly, and she's supposed to be a really tough lady, and she's born on my wife's birthday,
well,
so it can't be all bad.
Can't be all bad.
She's great, so she's got to be sharp as a tack.
There you go, that birthday. Larry, what do you think?
But you do have some Republicans that are rather concerned.
Right, they're circling the wagons, they're telling her to drop out, they're telling Bush to pull the nomination. And I think the base, the real conservative base, is very upset because they thought that somebody with real strong credentials would pop up.
Well, the point that you make is that we don't know anything about her.
Right, and that's the problem.
True.
Although it can, on double-edged sword, it can be a good thing, because if you don't know anything about her, how can you attack her?
Well, yeah, the good thing is that it's not Bill Clinton that's making this nomination. I mean, then we'd have something maybe to worry about. But in this particular case, George Bush, we know.
Well,
And the first guy out of the box is John Roberts, who's this like superhero made to be born into being the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. And even the Democrats all went, white flag, okay, we give up. This guy's too good for our stuff.
Yeah, but he still lost 22 votes.
Well, I'm waiting to see how our senators...
Just goes to show you how valuable those Biden and Schumer votes are.
Well, Boxer's already said she's not going to vote for her, I believe. But interestingly, people are now talking about there should be term limits for the Supreme Court, which does have some credibility to it, because you get somebody on there, it's tenure. Look at when Reagan, dear Ronald Reagan, great president, very conservative, look what he put in, and became very moderate. So you can have great credentials, and then all of a sudden you get in there.
Well, don't forget what Dwight D. Eisenhower said.
That's true.
He said, the biggest mistake I made in my entire administration, 8 years in office, was making putting Earl Warren on the Supreme
Right.
Court.
And look at Bush 1. He put Souter on, which came with incredible conservative
Yeah.
credentials, and he flipped.
Well, I
So-
think that's the reason why President Bush has known this lady inside and out for 15 years. He's worked side by side with her. He knows that she's got a good character. So whatever her other proclivities, who cares? This is a lady that's going to do the right thing, and I would support the nomination. I think that all the so-called conservatives, the Pat Buchanans and so on, who are all on some other agenda. Maybe she's not Catholic. I don't know what's wrong.
No,
But
Yeah, but
there's
let
something.
me go
Not
back to the
Catholic.
point that you make, Lucille. And I would support a term limits. I don't know if it would be, 18 years. It would be an extended number.
Right.
But when you have a lifetime job and you're serving there and you're 85 or 90 years old, I think perhaps you miss a step a little bit, and there's enough other judges in the system that could come up and do the job.
Absolutely. Like
Yeah, but
Stephen-
that's why they make older people have sensitive ribs, because somebody like the wife or one of their buddies are going to go, uh-oh,
No,
it's time for you to step down.
Well, they haven't. Stephen Breyer's running around. He has a new book out, and he's talking about, well, the law in this land, the law.
A lot of people are going to
And
be
it's
sharp
just
until they're 100 now.
unbelievable.
And
We
Well,
told,
that's
we
true.
told you there's going to be 2 or 3. There's another one.
That's true. Yeah.
In this
Breyer.
administration, there's going to be another one to go.
nobody, we shouldn't worry about anybody on the Supreme Court until they turn 89 or 90. Then we can start worrying about them, because
Well, actually, it's-
because people are living a lot longer now. They're a lot sharper than they were before.
Well, that's true. Some people in their 80s are brilliant. Some people in their 40s can't find the car keys. So it really just
Correct.
depends on the hand you're dealt. But okay, so we're done with the Supreme Court. We put everybody in their place.
Right.
Now let's talk. There was a special election last week, or just recently, in
October
Orange County.
4th, yeah.
And so to replace Chris Cox, who's now the head of the SEC. And John Campbell was expected to pull it out, very conservative, kind of in the same political box as Chris Cox.
Mm-hmm.
But he did not get 50% plus one, because there were 17 in there. And I thought it was entertaining. The 2 write-ins, one got 11 votes and one got 2. So
Mhm.
obviously that was interesting. But we have a person in there, and there's going to be 5 people in the December election, because the top vote getter from each political party gets to be there. So you've got Campbell, a Republican, you've got a Democrat, you've got a Green,
Young is a Democrat.
and you've got,
He got 8%.
right,
Young got
but-
8%.
But he's still in there because
He's
he
gonna
was the
be there.
top.
And
But you
American
have the-
Independent got 14.4, which is a world's record.
Right, but that's Jim Gilchrist.
Right.
He is the co-founder of the Minutemen.
Yeah.
And people on talk shows, because I'm a political junkie, and I listen to all these shows, and they're saying, send money to this man, give him money, give him time, walk the precincts, do what you can to get him elected, because he's going to protect the borders.
Lucille, let me jump in and tell you that he has raised a very important issue that we've covered before.
Absolutely.
Illegal immigration is a serious problem, and sadly, our president is not doing, I'll use the word enough. I don't know if he's done anything to stop the problem or to deal with it. But you have a situation with a man who's registered, running as an American independent. You need a machine behind you to get anything accomplished inside the Beltway.
Right.
I don't care if it's a Democrat or Republican. Tom Tancredo may be there saying, I'd love to have him join me, but you're still not going to get anything accomplished. I'm happy that Jim has at least raised the issue that's of concern to us in terms of the immigration problem. But
Right. But you
John
can't-
Campbell is
yeah.
going to be the winner
I'll
in
tell
this
you how
election.
bad it is. I'll tell you how bad it is. It's so bad that he's not talked about bringing pork into his congressional district.
Wait,
Nothing.
Gilchrist?
Yeah, Gilchrist isn't talked about
He's a
pork.
one-issue person.
Well, and the bottom line is it was so bad that today in the paper they had Dianne Feinstein saying that she was going to support the $39 million it's going to take for the dredging of the Newport Bay. Well, where did this come from? I mean, come on. I mean, it's so bad that they got to go out and get a Democrat to support, our pork barrel spending in our district.
Let me go back to this race because you brought up a good point. It's pretty sad that you got some rather affluent areas included here like Irvine and Newport Beach, 400,000 registered voters.
Right.
It's an embarrassment to me for the men that are serving in our country, for us to have the freedom and the freedom to vote, when 22% or whatever that number is, around 90,000, show up. And now you have a situation where you don't have a representative, because Chris Cox is no longer sitting in that chair, that you don't have a representative in the House. And, you know, don't complain about policy decisions when you don't even take the time to go and either do an absentee ballot, which is painless, or go to the ballot box and cast your vote.
It shows, though, what the people that are in the district actually know what's going on a little better than you might think. Because, you know, a lot of people said, well, it's going to be Campbell. In the beginning of the evening on election night, he was up to 50, almost 52%, leading from the absentee ballots. So it was a foregone conclusion he was going to win the Republican aspect of it. The Democrats didn't want to show up because they knew that in the general election they're going to fail miserably. Gilchrist motivated enough of the naysayer, we don't like Bush, we don't care about, you know, whatever, to put out 15% of the vote. He's probably going to get at the end of it 22%.
Right, and then people were saying Marilyn Brewer, the other Republican, the well-known other Republican in the race, really just, if she had pulled out, Campbell would have won. And they would not have had all this extra money to be spent, because these elections not only are costly to the taxpayer, but they're costly to the individual.
It was actually a good thing, though, because we found out what the strength of the new majority was. The strength of the new majority is 15%.
Yeah, but they supported Campbell. They didn't support her.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're talking the real new majority.
Okay. Well, okay, we've touched that. So more on that issue in December. We'll figure out who won that issue.
December 6th.
December 6th. Okay, so everybody in Irvine and Newport and Leisure World and Laguna and all the places.
Everybody in the 48th district.
Lucy, let's get an election coming up here soon.
We have another election.
Why don't you share with your viewers what's coming up?
Well, we have a special election that was called by the governor, and it's going to be on November the 8th. And by this time, everybody must have received their information packet. This is a 73-page document. Now, I don't know about you, but it takes a person with a lot of time on their hands to go through this page by page by page. And there's not that many, what is there, 8 initiatives on this, in this? But this is one thing. And then you get your little voter's pamphlet, which really identifies all the issues, but in a much smaller, condensed version. And let's just talk about the ones that, we've talked about the ones from the state, and we can go over those briefly in a second. But Orange County itself has a number of issues that's going to affect all of us, and there are 4 of them. And there are other issues that just specifically for different cities, and we won't go into that because you'll have to do that on your own.
Let's focus in on this. This is a special election. This is an off-year special election.
So
this was designed by, actually the impetus for it was a good cause. It was the governor who's being attacked by every union in the state right now because he's actually trying to do something. How dare he try to actually do something?
But he campaigned on that, blowing up the boxes.
That's exactly right. So he's trying to blow up the boxes, and the unions are spending $80–100 million to try to fight back and putting in special fees for their membership so they can get more money to spend on these TV ads. And it's great, because what happened is, in addition to what he wanted to bring to the party, which were 4, then 4 other initiatives qualified, which will save us from 4 initiatives that we would have gotten in the next election cycle anyway. And then there was all of these other ones that were, as you said, that were local, that were designed by greedy bureaucrats.
Well, let's talk a minute. Let's just go back to the one. You mentioned all the unions are spending all this money. The unions are making a point that says, you're going to take money away from us and the ability, because paycheck protection, so they would have to affirmatively say, I want you to take union dues out for political
What an
things.
imposition.
But they're saying, we have that ability now. There is the Beck decision from the Supreme Court that's been around for probably 15 years. And that says you cannot take money out of my paycheck and use it for a political thing. You have to give it to a charity of my choice. So the union members are saying, we already have that. Secondly, they're saying that you're not imposing this on big corporations. They can spend at will. They can spend all the money that they want. So why are you shutting us down with our freedom of speech and you're not shutting them down? What do you say to those people?
I think we've covered this last time. With respect to, and by the way, 330,000 members of the CTA put up
California Teachers
California
Association.
Teachers Association. The numbers aren't final yet, but that union put up $48 million to stop the Paycheck Protection Initiative. They're putting up, as Ron said, $80 to $100 million to go after all of the ones that Arnold has. With the opt-out clause, the burden is on the teacher or the union member to make the request, where if this passes, then the burden shifts to the union by having to come to you for that permission.
But what do they say? Okay, you're shutting us
Well,
down
right
for
now,
freedom of speech.
you know, let's get back to the essence of how unions operate anyway. Right now, if any union in the country decides to go out on strike, they usually come up with a strike fund that they need to do. So they have their membership vote.
Right.
They say, let's have a extra fee attached for a strike fund because we're going to go out on strike. Every single one of them does it.
Okay.
Well, what's wrong with this? You know, I was the one that said, you know, there may be some conflicts going on with the courts regarding this issue. But, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I've decided to go this way with it. I think that the governor's got a good point on this. I think that they've got to just, there's nothing wrong with this. They're going to have to give approval to use their money to go out and fight
Yeah,
the
but
battles.
their thing is we already have that ability currently. And
Yeah,
then
I mean, it's-
what do you say to the fact that you're stopping them from raising money to get their point across, whereas corporations can do anything that they want?
Yeah, but the corporations, it's a different story. They're accountable to their shareholders or stockholders, whatever it is. I think it's different when you compare the private and public sector to this, and I know that's one of their arguments. I'm just not buying
Hey,
it.
78 is exactly the same thing. They've got all of the pharmaceutical companies
Right.
supporting 78, all right? But, you know, and then 79, all the unions are supporting 79, and the trial lawyers. So, you know, it's like baseball
Yeah,
teams, you know?
they're the two, 78 and 79 are the pharmaceutical ones for drug discount programs.
Exactly.
And 78, as you mentioned, with
It's a
pharmaceutical
little more
companies.
conservative, more
Right,
laid
and-
back.
But 79 creates a complete state bureaucration to develop
Oh, yeah, a
the
lot of
drug-
jobs for those people that are...
Right, so it explodes the bureaucracy that's already
Terrible.
in the
There's a
state.
couple of big ones out there, and if we could, I'd like
Yeah,
you to
let's
shift
go.
to Prop 77.
77 is redistricting, which is, we have McCain. John McCain is in town
Right.
on the state running around with the governor. He's supporting all of Governor Schwarzenegger's initiatives.
All
but in
four, yes.
But in particular, the redistricting. So tell us what's going to
Well, the
happen there.
redistricting one is a big one because as we've researched and we found that in these recent elections, basically the people who get elected have had those same seats unless there's a term limit representation that drops out.
So in
and-
essence, they are picking their voters. The voters are not picking their representative.
And the best way to describe this and define it, the Orange County Register came out with a feature the other day called The Ribbon of Shame. And what they did is they showed one of the particular congressional districts. And you've got some districts that run, you know, this wide by 200 miles long. And what I've done is I went further than that and looked at two of the districts. There's 53 congressional districts in California.
Okay.
And I compared two that are side by side, 50 and 53 in San Diego County. And it's interesting that if you were to check on the city of La Jolla, La Jolla is in Duke Cunningham's district,
Okay.
which is a Republican, and it's like a donut hole in the middle, yet the Democrat surrounds it. So it's not two Democratic or two Republican districts side by side. This is a gerrymandered district. And I'm not picking on the Republicans and Democrats. Both parties play the game.
Right.
And if you check the history, they're always going to get reelected.
Every 10 years, we count how many people we've got, and we decide, well, how many representatives do we need?
Sure.
And after every 10 years, all of the politicians all get together and say, well, what do you want? Well, what do you want? Well, I'll trade you this for that. I mean, it's like a big monopoly game for
Right.
these guys that are in business. And you know, we initially were not too thrilled with the way this thing was set up. But having said all that, you've got the fox guarding the hen house every 10 years right now.
Yeah.
So the worst thing that's going to happen is we're going to shoot somebody in the foot. And that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's what we ought to do with this initiative. We should pass the redistricting and give it a shot. If it doesn't work, what's the worst going to happen? They're going to come up with another initiative in 2 years to remand it back or
Okay.
whatever.
Or by the time 2010 comes around, you have to redistrict anyway. because your
Exactly.
census.
Right.
Well, we don't have very much time left because time goes by so fast. But let's talk about the four initiatives that really involve the firefighters of Orange County.
Right.
Years ago, they had 172, which said that, well, tell us what 172 does.
Well, Prop 172 was to protect the cities and the county. It goes back to Prop 13, actually. And the state at that time...
Let's not get them confused, though. It's Proposition D that we're voting on this time,
Right.
which is related to Proposition 172, which was passed in 1993.
Right.
Okay.
Because the
So-
state needed to backfill a shortfall, so they took $2.3 billion at that time from the cities and the counties. So we were allowed to pass a 0.5% sales tax, which was Measure 172. And the division of that sales tax was going to be 80% to the police, the sheriff, and probation, and 20% to the district attorney's office. The fire authority receives their money from property tax, not sales tax. And the issue that's triggering 4 different items now on this particular county ballot was based on a initiative process started by the fire authority, the Orange County Fire Authority. They went out and they got over 100,000 signatures to qualify
That's amazing
the
in
initiative,
itself.
which is ballot measure D. So the Board of Supervisors said, let's see, let's create measures B, C, and E. Now what happens is that of those 4, the one that gets the highest vote count is going to be the winner.
So it doesn't have to be 50%, it's just whoever gets the most votes. But going back to 172, wasn't there a proviso in there that the firefighters were supposed to get 10% of that sales tax?
I don't believe so.
No, it wasn't?
No.
Okay, because I thought in that proposition, they were guaranteed so much.
They
money.
got that on the property tax side.
They're
Okay.
guaranteed that
They got
the
they
property
got a
tax will not be
percentage of-
rated.
Yeah.
Okay.
That assurance they have. Now,
Yeah.
Okay.
what people aren't aware of is that the fire authority represents roughly 43% of the population of this county. So there are people living in cities such as Anaheim, Brea, Costa Mesa, Fountain Valley, Fullerton, Garden Grove, Huntington Beach,
Newport
La
Beach.
Habra, Newport Beach, Laguna Beach, Orange, and Santa Ana that have their own fire departments. So the people living in those cities end up losing if D passes. Because if some of the money has to be shifted, if that pie is changed, the makeup of the pie, if some of that money is shifted, now the argument that the fire authority says is if there is a fire or a catastrophe of some kind, but it's a reciprocal agreement.
Sure.
I'm sure if something happened in where I live in Mission Viejo, if there was a problem, then the people in Laguna Beach would help us if we needed it. So I don't buy that argument.
No, because there's a big state. There's, in fact, now it's been expanded, all of those joint ventures between all of the
Okay,
fire
JPAs.
departments.
But the problem is this is creating grief.
Mutual aid.
You know, I serve on a board for police officers and firefighters. We have a prayer breakfast every year. And I'm with Chip Prather and Mike Corona and hundreds of firemen and policemen, and it puts us in the middle. It's very awkward.
Sure.
But this
No, it
initiative...
puts Larry in the middle because his South County of Orange County is going to be benefiting from this if the Measure D passes,
Well, it
because
sounds like
because
the
all the
airport
North County
issue.
cities
everybody in the North County where
Has
we
their own.
live,
you have your own fire departments.
Gosh, the
so
North
we
and
would
the
encourage
South.
everyone in North County vote against D.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, but there's other initiatives that were put on by the supervisors, mainly Bill Campbell.
Yeah,
and,
B, C, and E.
and what do they say?
Well, Measure B says, let's spend the money, if that's the answer, across the board,
Okay.
across the entire, 34 cities, whatever it is in the county. That sounds reasonable.
Spread the wealth.
Spread it. Another one that he has suggested is Measure C. And in this case, they want to place $10 million into a fund so that if you want a new hook and ladder or whatever it may be, you put in a request and, it'll go
Well,
through an
where's that
approval
money coming
process.
from? Just from the general fund?
It's the money, it's from that
Or is that-
ERAF, it's from that same
Yeah.
fund.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's that one. And then Measure E is to put 5% set aside for the probation department. But I really think it was a clever maneuver on the part of some of the Board of Supervisors to confuse the voters who had a single issue where the firefighters went out and got over
Right.
100,000 signatures
It is fair.
by putting B and C and E on the same
Well,
ballot.
the C, you're saying that they want to put $10 million in a pot, and if the firefighters need something, that they come and there's that pot for them. But wouldn't that, by the same token, be taking money away from the probation and the DA and the
Of course it is. That's where it comes out of.
Well,
so how would that be rectified?
this is a complex issue. You've got an 80-20 split, but there's a rollover.
Hmm.
So if they don't spend the money, some of that money is put in this other account.
Do they ever not spend the money?
No, they always spend it because otherwise they don't
They
get it
won't get
next
the
year.
budget next year.
Right. One of the arguments that somebody made to me is, like we're a contract city with our police, and our contracts go up every year, 11 million, 12 million, whatever it is this year. If the fire authority needs more equipment and the argument of having, you know, 4 men on a truck, then go to those contract cities and ask for more money. I'm not promoting that. All I'm saying is that
Don't
there
say
are
that.
alternatives here.
Yeah.
And I'm in an
Wow.
awkward spot because I've got friends on both sides that have signed both the argument in favor and the argument in opposition
Well, I know
to
the
these
firefighters
initiatives.
are working very hard. This is their issue. They want this passed.
We got recorded
Greatly.
calls today from somebody representing the sheriffs,
Oh.
talking about how
Yeah.
many, you know, men are going to lose their jobs, and
Just vote
But-
against all of them.
But you.
vote no on all of them.
Vote
But
no
no
on
on all of them, then
Yeah.
nothing passes.
Just leave it
What-
status quo.
What happens if nothing passes? Something has to pass.
If you don't get 50%, nothing happens.
Oh, I thought you said who better gets.
If more than one
When you
pass, then
pass
it's the one that
50.
has the highest
Over
vote.
50%, you got to have over 50%.
If you got 52 on one and 58 on the other,
yeah,
then
yeah.
the one 58%
58
would
cover,
prevail.
but
Oh God.
no,
But
so
it's so
just
awful.
vote them all down. Vote
Vote
them
them
all
all
down.
down.
That's it,
Well,
down.
it's going
All.
to be entertaining because, as I mentioned before, you've got Senator John McCain here working the state with the governor. And some of the polls say all of the governor's initiatives are going to lose. His polling says they're all going to win. So
course
it's
they are.
going to be a flip at the end.
It's going to be a photo finish. We're not sure.
Hey,
it's
teacher
very
tenure,
entertaining.
74, right? 5 years. Well done. Should be enforced. Union dues. Of course, the union should ask their people if they were going to spend it frivolously.
Well, I
Three.
don't think it's frivolously. They think it's going to
You
go
know,
to
the
help
teach-
them.
That's true. That's right.
get
Right
people.
now,
Let me
they're
come back to
spending-
the teacher tenure, which goes from 2 to 5 years. There's a second part of that, and that's if you want to get rid of a teacher, one of the changes if this thing passes is the fact that they have to be written up twice, but they don't have to keep coming up with all kinds of documentation. They don't have to give them a third strike, if you will, before they can be dismissed. So you have to read it carefully.
Well,
You
it's
could
very-
actually get rid of Ward Churchill if you worked in.
Well, it's very interesting because I used to be a labor relations manager at a very large company, and we were unionized. I used to also be a member of IBEW before I went into management. And there always was, if it's not written, if it's not in your personnel jacket, it never happened. I don't care how many judges you have in black robes telling you what happened, it never did unless it was documented.
That's right.
So when you're saying they can get written up twice and fired,
You
but
do get
not
written up
third.
twice now, but you
And-
don't. But the requirement for the documentation for dismissal is greatly reduced, and you don't get another
Now or
90-day
with the
period
new law?
With the new law, the goal you have to get over, the fence you have to get over to get fired would be less. That's all. And
Okay.
and the
We've
yeah.
lowered the bar.
Well, unfortunately, we're all out of time again as usual. This goes by entirely too quickly because you're so good and you really know the issue. So, Ron, plug your website again.
Okay, Cutting Edge, a talk show. It's we're on 24/7. Just pull up the website. It's at Cutting Edge Center-a-talkshow.com and check out all of our different videos. We've got over 55, 60 videos now
Wow.
of different shows that'll entertain you forever. You can watch them forever. You don't have to sign up for anything. You don't have to put your name on anything.
And
are
our
you gonna
closing, our closing comment is, do remember to vote.
Yes, important.
And also the biggest thing of all, we still have some soldiers in
Yes.
some harm's way over there, and let's
Keep them in your prayers.
keep them in our
Absolutely.
prayers for the future.
Now, are you going to continue doing your editorials? You're going to do other
Yeah, I
shows?
think we'll see. We'll see
Okay.
what kind of
Thanks,
feedback
guys.
we
Really
get.
appreciate it. Come back often.
Thank
You're
you.
always welcome. This is Lucille Kring from Kring's Corner. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, make it a great week. And as Ron and Larry already said, please keep the members of our armed forces in harm's way in your prayers and thoughts. Also, the people who are hit by Katrina and Rita, and also the earthquake in Pakistan and that area of the world. God bless you, and until next time, make it a great week.